Alright, I'm here to propose a new way, or kind of more of an updated way, of treating juveniles who offend sexually. One of the lesser known issues in every community is really juveniles who offend sexually. It doesn't get a lot of publicity because of confidentiality and all these different rules and laws, but yet a lot of parents still worry about their kids becoming victims of child abuse, sexual abuse, sexual offenses. So let's first look at kind of the demographics. Here in the U.S., less than 1% of all reported crimes were sex offenses in 2012, at least according to the FBI's Uniform Crime Report. Of juveniles arrested, this holds true. Less than 1% were arrested for sex offenses. This is consistent with the national averages. When it comes to victims of sex offenses who are minors, those younger than 18 years of age, about a third are perpetrated on by another minor, otherwise known as a juvenile. And overall, between a quarter and a third of all sex offenses in the U.S. are committed by juveniles. In many cases, juveniles have been prosecuted as adults, either because of statutes or because juvenile court has transferred them to the adult system. Now this definitely follows the punishment model. It doesn't really follow the rehabilitative model. And it's come with a lot of problems. Though the intent is to punish the offender and protect the public, in actuality the offender becomes another victim. These juveniles are twice as likely to be assaulted by staff, the correctional officers themselves, are more than 50% more likely to be attacked with a weapon by another inmate, and are 8 times more likely to commit suicide. It's important to note that there is a difference between sex offenders and juveniles who offend sexually. It is rare for a juvenile who receives appropriate rehabilitative treatment to reoffend. Current estimates are anywhere between 3% and 18%. The adult recidivism rate, however, are estimated to be around 40%. This is because once these people become adults, a lot of these patterns are set in them. They are more prone to repeat the same behaviors. As juveniles, their minds are not completely formed yet. Their brains are not completely formed yet. And so they still have a lot of room to adjust, to grow, and to learn how to do things differently. And so juveniles it's very rare that they actually reoffend, at least in a sexual manner. The National Center on Sexual Behavior of Youth has established some guidelines that have been shown to be effective, and they've seen some that have not been effective. Outpatient group treatment lasting between 8 to 20 months has been found to be highly effective, which is interesting because the other appropriate treatment is actually individual treatment. We'll get into a little bit of the cost benefits here in a moment. However, those groups must be based on juvenile-specific perspectives. They can't be used using adult perspective material. Those groups that are using adult perspective materials are actually increasing the rates of recidivism for these juveniles. And they've shown that registration should be limited to the most extreme cases, i.e., that kid who just cannot control themselves, feel that they always have to be in charge. It's more of that power control, more deviant type sexual offenses. Currently in our area, there are only 2 licensed sex offender treatment providers who are willing to treat juveniles with the appropriate material. These providers are using individualized workbooks and treatment that last anywhere from 6 months to 2 years. Sometimes it does go beyond 2 years, but typically it's within that time frame. Now, the juveniles are being seen once a week. Now, the current contract rate for our area is $85 per session for a licensed sex offender treatment provider. What I am proposing here is moving to a goal treatment protocol. So preferably this would include 2 providers for each group. Obviously, it can be just 2 providers who facilitate all these groups, but there may need to be some flexibility there. I do want to limit the group participation to only 8 members per group. We may be able to get up to 10, but really the research shows that if you go beyond that 8 to 10 maximum capacity, the level of participation drops, the effectiveness of the groups drop in general, and so the kids are not going to be able to get as much out of it, and we're not going to be able to provide the necessary treatment that they need to be productive members of society. We would need to offer at least 2 groups per week. This will accommodate academic, family schedules, also sports, church, different activities that these kids are involved in, that actually help them and benefit them in becoming productive members of society, and not shoving them in a closet and away from everybody else, which really would reinforce that negative behavior to begin with. The material I'm proposing we use is Pathways, a Guided Work for Youth Beginning Treatment, the 4th edition, and it was written by Timothy Kahn. Now, the reason I've chosen this book is because it is a strengths-based treatment option, and it actually teaches appropriate sexual relationships. So this isn't just a no. This is okay, here's what you should have done. This is what would have been appropriate, or this is how you do this in a way that does not offend on anybody else. It doesn't take away their rights. Now, for juveniles transferred to the adult court system and sent to prison, it costs the state around $20,000 per year for their incarceration. And that's just in general population. This is not including, if they need to be put into segregation or into a specialized safety unit so that they can actually be protected. Now, the average cost of outpatient treatment for juveniles who offend sexually is around $5,000 per year, and this is a national average. Here in our local system, based on that $85 per session rate, if we consider 50 sessions per year, given 2 sessions or 2 weeks off for the provider to go on vacation and whatnot, that costs around $4,250 per year per juvenile. In the group format, charging a rate of $25 per juvenile per group session, the cost of treating would be reduced to around $1,250 for the same 50 session average, plus the cost of materials, which is around $50 for each workbook. Now, if we look at this from the perspective of around 25 juveniles in treatment at any one time, the cost of the juvenile court is around $85,000 per year for treatment. Now, the reason I chose that 25 juvenile number is not just arbitrary. When I was working with the juvenile justice system here, we ran around that number of juveniles on the caseload in overall each year. And so this is a pretty good average of what our local cost is. Now, this does not include the cost of juvenile probation officers who conduct pretrial supervision, the post-adjudication predisposition investigation, also known as a social history, and post-disposition supervision, which lasts 2 years or more. It also doesn't cover lawyers' fees, court process fees, or the cost of victim treatment. So this is just the cost of treating the sexual offender or the juvenile who offended sexually each year. If those same 25 juveniles are being treated in a group format, the annual cost drops to around $25,000 plus cost of workbooks. Again, at that $50 per workbook rate, 25 juveniles, that's roughly $1,250 a year just for materials. Now, this is an average savings of around $60,000 for the court system each year. Those same juveniles, if they were sent to a prison, would cost the state an estimated $500,000 per year, which means really the savings at this point, we're looking at $475,000 a year if the juveniles are left in the community and treated on an outpatient basis. And in this sense, they're actually less likely to reoffend. There is a lot of support from the local juvenile probation department, at least especially from the chief juvenile officer, to initiate a group format. She already knows that this is effective and this is a good idea. The problem is actually getting it implemented. The majority of the costs for this program will be covered by the juvenile court. The costs not covered would include the materials. That's a one-time fee of $50 per juvenile. The training and licensing of 2 providers, which runs about $2,000 per year, about $1,000 per provider when you include travel, lodging, conference fees, CEUs, all that stuff. And then $500 for miscellaneous office supplies like paper, pens, copies, also some books, and maybe get the updated versions of treatment manuals and stuff like that. So the question is, why switch to a group format? Currently, the two treatment providers are working with juveniles individually, which takes up around a quarter of their available caseload. Both work with other clients who are not mandated by the courts. Working with juveniles who offend sexually is a stressful profession, and dedicating anywhere from 5 to 15 hours a week to these clients can accelerate that rate of burnout. By switching to a group format, 2 providers can work the same number of clients and only dedicate between 2 and 6 hours a week to those same clients and support each other before, during, and after each session. And this does not diminish the quality of treatment for the juveniles. This lesser amount of time can benefit the providers by reducing the amount of stress and slowing down that rate of burnout. It really will help them to last longer in this profession. Now, since the bulk of this cost will be covered by the juvenile court, the requested amount to cover materials, training, and miscellaneous supplies is at least $3,750 per year. This is really a small portion to be looking at whenever you consider all the things that are being provided here. Now, preferably, we would like to be able to receive $5,000 a year. This helps us with cost of office, upkeep, having an office to prepare, and all this stuff, and also with staying up to date with material, training, having the stuff that we actually need to provide the best care possible. So I hope that you would seriously give this program some thought and consideration, and we do hope that you would provide the funds necessary to give this program a good start, a good foundation to move forward and treat these juveniles in our community. Thank you.